How do you see yourself against YC? I saw the comment before podcast that you prepare them for YC. Do you see that at some point in time we'll start competing with YC?
We got 150 applications in that and we picked 5 teams. And one of them was Kirana Cart, which is now Zepto.
Our boldest chapter, a $100 million fund dedicated to student entrepreneurs. So there's this Desh Bhakt also, yaar India se bhi ban sakti hain. The next Googles, the next Teslas, or the next whatever can come from this country,
I personally believe that students starting their company is not a new trend. I feel like it has existed across history. Even the starting of Silicon Valley, you had like Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, and there's a Stanford Computer Club.
These students are really passionate and dedicated. उनको पता है कि उन्हें startup ही करना है. Job is not an option for them, right? They were struggling in finding their product market fit or whatever, and they had gotten cash trapped, so to say. So the founder was an MBA grad. He's an MBA grad actually, so he had some savings and things like that. He maxed out his credit cards. He maxed out everything. He has so much conviction. यार मैं तो बना लूँगा, right? Like if today he didn't get the next round of money, he would be completely finished from a financial point of view. Our latest investment is from IIT Jammu. I was also surprised to see, अरे IIT Jammu.
Welcome to the 7th episode of The Next Big Opportunity. As you know, the objective of this podcast is to talk about entrepreneurship, AI, the new trends, and really enthuse the next set of founders who are coming from India and build global companies. Some could be small, some could be large, but the idea is to talk about and see what challenges and opportunities exist. So today we have on a show Richa Bajpai from Campus Fund and Abhishek from Grad Capital. They're going to talk about what they're seeing at student level activity and how so many companies are coming out of the entire wave of students who are making new companies and make new India in many, many ways. So with that, Richa, would love to get your introduction.
Sure.
So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. No, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. So mentioned, at Campus Fund, we believe that the next generation of global innovation will happen from this country because, Indian talent is globally known. And now we have risk capital in this country as well, right? So the next global businesses should be built from this country and from our dorm rooms. And that's the thesis, we have at Campus Fund. And why I started Campus Fund is because I've been a student entrepreneur through and through. I did my first startup back in 2009 when I was in my final year of engineering. And I started Campus Fund when I was a student again back in London while I was doing my MBA at London Business School. So this is like a full circle for me. I've been one myself. So I know what it takes to build when you're starting in university. And this is like full mojo for me. I can actually help these youngsters with capital, with whatever it takes, to help them go global, build large companies from this country. So I'm just so happy doing this, It gives me that kick, that mojo to be able to do this. So very grateful to get an opportunity to build Campus Fund. So that's a little bit about Campus Fund and what we are trying to do.
Thanks, Richa. Abhishek?
I don't have as illustrious track records as you both. I'm pretty much younger. I grew up in Delhi. My family is a family of accountants. They wanted me to do commerce and accounting, but I fell in love with science and I want to do physics and I want to have a shot at Nobel Prize. And then I went to study physics at BITS. There I worked at Baba Atomic Research Center. I graduated from BITS. Then I got a job at UC Berkeley as a researcher in genetics. But I still love science, but I didn't feel like I will be able to get through the rigorous program of PhD, postdoc, and become a prof. I felt like it's too grueling. But I still love science. I like the freedom, and I felt like I'll not be too free there. So I came back to India, and I went to MBA too. But honestly, I just after I just started Grad Capital into it, so I was passively there. So I don't really count that as my big part of my journey. But I'm still grateful. I went to IIM Ahmedabad, and second year is they also one of the people there wrote a check to us. So even though I was not attending classes, so they still like appreciated my presence and appreciated what I want to do. So I really appreciate that. So IMA Ventures had written a check to get us started. And initially, I was 23, 24, and if I went out to LPs or investors and be like, I want to start a fund, and what, 23, 24. I'm not a ex-founder or an ex-GP. Like, look at my face and look at me, and it's like, you're too young to do this. You're not fit to do this. And there's a certain loss of aesthetic appeal when you're raising a fund at that age. But still, and that gave us the push. We raised a first $1 billion fund, and we started investing $25,000 for 4%. That was our first check we started writing. And the primary purpose of that check was to fund projects. Even if you go to our website now, we use the word projects much more than companies, projects much more than startups, because really we started by asking, hey, we don't have a lot of money, but we need to fund people. So what is the amount that we can fund people with? And $25,000 is a good amount for a project, but not too good for a company. Before we got to this fund, we had started it's almost like a Fiji rip-off YC coaching program, because we said we'll help people get into Y Combinator. We didn't have money, we weren't able to raise capital. But YC was picking students, like they had funded FAMPE, they had funded OK Credit. They were not students, but young, but FAMPE were in campus. So YC they were done Kalam Labs, which was students. So they had done students, so people knew about it. So people felt like YC is a shop, and it's also like an application thing. You don't have to find a connect to a partner. So one thing we learned is that students love applications. Like you cannot ask them to get referrals, get to the partner. That's not going to work. And that's one of the primary charm that YC set on Indian campuses, that it's also application. While the Sequoia and all of the other folks, always went out on TV and podcasts, they said, if founder is great, they'll find a way to get to us. But students weren't like that. So we said, we'll help you, craft the application. We'll hack it. Just how you, not hack it, but what answers to write, what to talk in interviews. We got 150 applications in that, and we picked 5 teams. And one of them was Kirana Cart, which is now Zepto. So our engagement was just a 2-3 month thing where we just connected them with few IC alums. And after that, we raised the funds. And we started investing 25,000 in 2021. That was our first check. Then our check slightly grew to 40K, now to 100K. Now we also write grants, lots of them. We're very fond of grants. And the idea behind grants is the spirit of projects. We may increase our equity check. We still want to do spirit of projects. One company that we recently funded is called Armatrix. They were at IIT Kanpur, and the mechanical engineering students, they had internships in Germany and Canada, and they want to go for PhD in mechanical. So we wrote them a $5,000 grant to their personal account. They didn't even have to start a company, because they were working in the prof, they were doing some thesis, and they were they figured out a robotic arm that could fuel airplanes mid-air. That was the project idea. Nothing to do with, will be a large company or not. And we thought that just passionate people for that project, we wrote that grant. And then, 6 months later, they realized a use case of that product. They said, this robotic arm can go inspect industry, it can inspect airplanes, it can inspect oil, etc. So we wrote a check in them 40K. We wrote a check for 40K after that. And then they raised a seed round recently. They also got a grant from Nikhil Kamath. And we funded them a couple of months before. One of them had graduated, the other people hadn't. But 6 months after they graduated, they got 5-6 seed term sheets, and they had to pick. They were suffering from success. So that's the reason why I'm telling you the story is because that's really the spirit of us. That there is an element of tinkering. With that $5,000 grant, they rented a flat in Kanpur, which they converted into a lab. So there's a spirit of tinkering with the idea of a project and not a company. So that's really, I believe we stand for. So if you ask me, what should students do? I feel just obsess over something and just do that. It doesn't matter what the use case is, if it's going to be a large company. When I started Grad Capital 3 months before that, if someone asked me, hey, do you want to be an entrepreneur? I would say no. I don't know if I'm be an entrepreneur. I don't know if a venture capital fund. Same for that team. And same for a lot of people in our portfolio companies, where if you hear their stories, it would be like, hey, we were obsessed about something else. You cared about something else. But we realized that when we started a company, fits our ambition. Because when someone starts getting ambitious, they realize starting a company is one place where their ambition can find its place.
So Richa, you started a campus fund in 2020 as well, right? On the same time.
Yes.
So did you see any opportunity that why start a campus fund?
Yes, great question.
Because back then, now we obviously 5 years down the line, we have some success in Zepto and Plutus and few other firms.
Yes.
But now, so why 2020?
Great question. So actually, that was also the COVID year. I was in my second year of MBA, lockdown in London. And had a lot of time at hand. So that is when I got exposed to this whole ecosystem of dorm room investing. So this is not a new concept per se, right? There are a couple of prominent funds in the US, like the Dorm Room Fund. There's Contrary Capital, Prototype Capital, Rough Draft Capital, which operate in similar formats. And a dear friend of mine had graduated from Stanford. He'd come to UK and he was starting something like this there. It is called as the Creator Fund in UK, right? So I was like, I'd love to, see and help you. I'm anyway sitting idle. So, we used to engage with a lot of entrepreneurs in Cambridge, Oxford, and, with some universities in the US as well, because he invests across. And I just loved the kind of innovation that's happening, especially in UK universities. There's a lot of biotech stuff, life sciences stuff happening. There are so many university spin-offs that happen. And then UK, obviously, there's insane amount of risk capital, which is made available to youngsters, right? Try, fail, and someday you'll hit a jackpot, right? And I looked at the Indian market, right? And I've been a student entrepreneur myself. Obviously, this ecosystem has grown significantly since 2009 till today. And, I was also in that mode of finding what to do next in life. And, once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. And you have to believe in something to be able to build it for long term, right? So that's how the idea of Campus Fund came about. I said, try karte, dekhte, whether it will work in the Indian ecosystem or not. And since then, it's never been a day which has, not full of excitement. We actually started with a very small corpus of $1 million. And just on 20th of June, we announced our boldest chapter, our $100 million fund dedicated to student entrepreneurs. So we are just going heavy on student entrepreneurs. And there's this Deshbhakt also, yaar India se bhi ban sakti hain. The next Googles, the next Teslas, or the next whatever can come from this country, And I'll give you examples. In our first fund, we have one of a very famous startup that we invested in. It's called as Digantara. They're building Google Maps of space. Yeah. They've caught fancy of, many people. They've raised load shit of money. And, the founders are from lovely professional university.
Yeah,
right?
I studied in Jalandhar as well. So I
exactly.
tell you, this is good university.
That's the point. Talent har jagah hai. And, with COVID, I'll tell you why COVID was such a cool period also to start up. Because to start up a fund like this, because knowledge is now democratized, right? फर्क नहीं पड़ता आप IIT गए हो या कहीं और गए हो. You have the same kind of information available. If you have the hunger, you will hustle, you will learn, and you will build. So if you're in IIT, you'll have easy access to people. If you're not in IIT, you can still, reach out to people because the trust on digital platforms is increasing by the day. So अभी वो geography और college का advantage उतना नहीं रहा जितना पहले होता था, right? The arbitrage has reduced significantly. So looking back, 2020, the COVID period was actually a very good inflection point to start investing in youngsters. And also, interestingly, in 2020, the government came up with a new education policy, right? Wherein it said, yes, please encourage students to be creators and innovators. So I think now looking back, the dots, connect beautifully. But it was also COVID, and as an entrepreneur, you cannot sit idle. And I loved what I saw in UK, US. I said, chalu karte, dekhte. So, to be very honest, never thought we'll come this far. But I think now there's no stopping. I mean, this ecosystem is so beautiful. You get to learn so much every day. You have so much raw talent, raw energy that, it just, gives you so much ambition yourself. यार इन बच्चों को पैसा देना चाहिए. And if we can provide that kind of capital, I can tell you this country's kaya will change in the next 5 years if you give serious capital to our young innovators. So that's the belief. And it just, thanks to COVID, is what I'll say. So that's how it all started.
I'm so excited to see what both of you are doing. I'm so excited, and I fully agree with both of you. The kind of things that these days, especially age group, 16 onwards are doing is really incredible. So if I ask both of you, what has really changed in the last 5 years from 2020 or 21 when you started Abhishek till now 25? How do you see the learning curve? Is there a trend line that you see among the young founders? What has really changed? If I look at 2-3 things that have massively changed, of course, young is young energy. India always was a talent pool, right? It was not that before 2020 there was no talent. Is still the same, right? Of course, they got more exposure. With AI coming in, it's get even more accelerated, right? So
Yes.
the odds are on all favor of actually young talent now. So that way advantage. But what trends do you have seen changing over the last 5 years?
I personally believe that students starting their company is not a new trend. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it has existed across history. Even the starting of Silicon Valley, you had like Steve Wozniak,
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, and it was a Stanford Computer Club.
My question is, what has changed in India? How
In
has
the
the
last 5
maturity of
years,
the founders have changed? Has something
I
changed?
feel
or
like
this-
no, I don't feel that there has been a great shift in mentality. Of course, I think more capital has come in.
like what I mean to say is,
But-
let's say more ambition. For example, sometime lot of time you see in the US, I have seen
Okay.
people want to build much more larger company. Like you started off saying it's a
Yes.
project,
Yes.
you're very passionate, and then project converts to a small
Yes.
I think
company.
maybe
then
role models have increased.
Yeah.
Like if there is if you pick up a camp, if you look, for example, if you look at IIT Madras, a lot of them are inspired by the other energy founders and how they started out from campuses. So when a story like that comes, there are like 10 people who look at that story and say, hey, he started just off like me in a similar hostel room that he was staying here, and he started off with nothing, and those people got somewhere, and that's sort of inspiring. I think, and I think as more and most people, like the reason why one of the reason bits people started companies is, there was this red bus that got in, then Grey Orange started, and Postman started, and all of those stories started getting really popular in campuses, and that inspired the next
So
generation.
more stories, more number of
I think
companies.
role model is the very, very important part to.
Yeah, just to add to what he's saying, I think, what has changed is, again, COVID was like the inflection point, so to say. There's more acceptance in the university ecosystem in you being an entrepreneur, flexibility around that, right? That gives push. And, capital is now easily available. Aaj ki tarikh mein, if you're an entrepreneur and if you're a student and if you get up one fine day like, mujhe startup karna hai, from your university ecosystem itself, you'll get 25 lakhs, 50 lakhs, just like that, right? So, it has become more acceptable. Your curriculums have become more flexible. Capital, experimental capital is available. And the whole concept of a youngster, from a parent's point of view, that, my beta or my daughter will, start a company of their own is becoming more acceptable. It's not so much of a pressure ki yaar job karo, Sharma ji ke bete ki to itni ki salary lagi hai, right? Like that. So that has become, and as I said, knowledge democratized, digital platforms, more trust, right? So according to me, these are the three things which have come in.
The kind of ideas, have they changed?
Yes. So basically, I'm telling you, one thing which I want to point out is when we started in 2020, when we started looking at startups, and today, the quality of entrepreneurs, student entrepreneurs, is increasing by the day, right? When I say that, it means the students are more prepared, more thorough, not only about the business that they are building, but also, what it takes to raise money from a VC, right? I think they are preparing themselves better, nowadays, which is great. So the quality of student entrepreneurs is also increasing by the day. That is what we've seen because of the acceptance in the university ecosystem. Your professor, your dean, everybody will be more supportive if you're doing a startup, right? So I think that has moved in the right direction.
What about the deal flow? Do you see the change? The number of companies starting up every year has been growing. How has that been? What does kind of numbers look like?
When we started, we didn't have like a sector or view, like, this is what's going to happen. But right now we're at 50% hardware, 50% AI.
And the scale, how many applications do come?
Including grants, last year we had like 40,000
applications.
A year.
40,000 applications.
Including the all grants.
Yeah,
program.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whichever ways. Entrepreneurship. You start with a grant and then become a company.
Absolutely. So it was a tough 6 months for the team.
40,000. And what about you, Richa?
So, we don't do grants and all. So for us, venture investing point of view, we see about 500 startups a year. So about 6,000 deals, but we invest in only about 15, 20 per year. So
6,000 is still a big number.
Yeah, 6,000.
And how does it relate to how many graduates do we get in a year in India who are possibly starting up?
Yeah, so I'll give you the statistics. There are 54,000 higher education institutes that exist in India, right? And then those 54,000 are spread between institutes of national importance, your IITs, then private universities like BITS, central universities, state universities. And those 54,000 higher education institutes then have multiple degrees and things like that, right? So you multiply it, 54,000 colleges, then you probably would take 1,000 to average out, like if not a big school, small school. So 54,000 into 1,000, बहुत सारी degrees. So there's a significant chunk of people, I think about 2 crore to 3 crore people are studying in colleges as
At
we
any given
speak,
point in time.
at any given point in time across different degrees. And this is increasing, like people are enrolling in courses and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the number.
So I'm curious. So what make you choose from 40,000 applications and you invest in what, 100 maybe including
So
grants? How much
then
you-
in after that we had to increase questions
Huh.
and ask for attachments. So now, so that we realized our stable rate of application should be 4,000 a year. So if we go above,
So 4,000. Okay.
so then we say, hey, how do we tweak the application form so that we get to 4,000? Because
so
that's
from 4,000, how many do you meet actually?
we invest 10 deal, invest
but how many
startups.
how do you meet?
How many interviews? We do 1,000 interviews.
1,000. What about you, Richard?
So actually, we have a full process. We have a 4-step process of elimination, right? So at every stage, 60% gets eliminated.
I understand. It's like
right?
college application basically.
Yes, in a way. So every stage there are, people getting eliminated, and we interact with almost everyone, right? That comes to us. So yeah, on a monthly basis, we see 500 startups, and we
Wow.
typically invest in 1 or 2 per month.
So what kind of, are there any archetypes or profile which are standing out? I know it can come from anywhere and students are students.
Yes.
Is there anything which is, any trend which is emerging so far? What kind of archetypes are more successful or people who made it to, at least to both of you?
So, I'll tell you, we are seeing a lot of, entrepreneurs coming from non-obvious degrees. Obviously, 50% of our entrepreneurs are also tech heavy, B.Tech. B.Tech students, engineering
stands
students, that stands out always. But now we are seeing more movement in MBAs, in medical. We are seeing doctors turning entrepreneurs, which is a great thing. We have lawyers, things like that. So the other set of people, PhD students, are actually taking to entrepreneurship, right? So that number is increasing by the day, but we are seeing a good mix of health tech, biotech, and hardware sort of companies. One interesting data, so we release our annual report every year, wherein we analyze all the startups that we've evaluated. So in our last year's report, obviously, bits is the top of the funnel, the maximum number, like 3.5% of our funnel is bits entrepreneurs, but approximately 4% for us, more than the bits cohort, was students who studied abroad are now coming back to building in India, right? So this is like Bharat Vapsi, Ghar Vapsi that's happening, and we were delightful to see that a lot of youngsters are choosing to come back to India. So, it is 4% of the funnel.
And what kind
last
of
year.
universities are that out of 4%?
Primarily American universities
Okay.
are from where students coming back and building, which is a good thing for the country. But that's a unique trend that we saw last year, and I hope that continues to increase.
What about you, Abhishek? What kind of trends do you see in your data?
So there are like American universities for sure, but what reverse brain drain is not happening is the sort of the Olympiad winners, the computer science talent. I feel like they're still not
coming back.
still not
because they get funded in the US
Yeah.
with double, triple amount. So I want to, that's a good segue to talk about. So what is the check size typically or an average that you invest?
Our check size.
Yeah.
If they're in campus and they're part time, they're not dropping out, they're not full time, then we write 40K.
I understand.
If they want to get full time, then we write a bigger check.
Understand. What about you?
So actually, for us, it's very case-to-case basis because we believe every entrepreneur, every company is very different. So our first checks are anywhere between 1 crore to 8 crores, because hardware companies at times need a lot of money. Like, for example, we are investors in Sarla, which is making flying taxis. Obviously, they needed more money. So that's our first check. We have 50% of this fund reserved for follow-ons. And we also have a 25 lakh check category also, which is completely idea based. We love the founders.
Just a play money basically. Just go and try
just
something out.
Try, So there's a 25 lakh kitty also that exists. But if it's, if they have a semblance of a prototype and it's serious business that they're building, then we do 1 to 8 crores, depending upon the kind of business. AI companies wouldn't need that kind of capital if they're building an application versus a hardware, right? So we give them that entire range.
I understand. Yeah. So how do you see the societal trend? I'm a father now, my daughter is 20, my son is 16, and we were talking just before the podcast, right? We are so education focused society, right? Because that's how, at least I grew up in the middle class.
Yes.
Parents said you become engineer, doctor, you have to study, and then you go to school. So what is the risk? How do parents see this risk versus reward when a student studying at a campus. So how do you see, obviously, since you have such a depth of experience,
Right.
so we'd love to know, especially for the parents out there, how should they think about if, let's say, my daughter, who's just finished second year of college,
Correct.
and she wants to do a startup, which she has been working for last 2 years on her own. Now she has a point where she can go full time into startup, or she can be part time. So how should one take about this decision, especially from a parent view, and then obviously from a child view as well?
Sure. So I think if you're really sure that you want to build a startup and you're seeing some early traction in it, and your college, and your academics are not hindering it in any form and shape, might as well complete the degree. दिखाने के लिए you are like graduated and you have a degree, your parents will be also happy about it. Doesn't matter whether you get a C grade or a B grade or an A grade, whatever, right? Then you're not studying for marks or for grades, right? You're just studying for passing, right? But then at the same time, if if you've hit your early traction, and if you feel that you are not able to continue with studies in parallel, might as well drop, right? And what is happening is, and it's been happening in the US, that there's a lot of flexibility. You can take leave of absence, right? I think a lot of Indian universities are now warming up to that concept of leave of absence, BITS being an example, right? They've started
You
that.
can take leave of absence also in BITS now?
Yes, there's this gap year
Okay.
that has launched in BITS, that you can take a gap year and build, and you can come back and join, right?
Wow, what an amazing
Yes.
policy.
So that is going to happen in India soon, right? So if you have an opportunity to take a gap year and build. And if you can, if you can manage your academics, might as well complete your degree. Grades nobody is going to ask you for, right?
Yeah, of course.
And but if you are, feeling so passionately, yaar nahi, I'm not able to do justice to my work, academics are heavy, either switch to a simpler course if you genuinely want a degree, or parents want you to have a degree, switch to a simpler course. If not, convince your parents to drop out. But still, we have not yet come to that inflection point wherein parents will be okay you dropping out. Maybe 5 years from now, I think a new trend which is also starting to come in is homeschooling, right? A lot of kids, we are seeing people in the 11th 12th standards starting off, and they're like, hमें college नहीं जाना है, we'll start building. 11th 12th पे भी चालू हो गया ये.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is also happening. But we'll say at least 11th 12th to karna zaruri hai. Please don't drop out, for your 11th 12th. College, you can also defer your studies, right? ठीक है, startup try कर लो. No college is not going to admit you if you're older, right? So see, it's all in the mind. And how comfortable your family, it's very personal, right? It's not something that we can guide, right? You can go back to college, whatever your age. You can get a job if you really want it, right? So decide what suits. And I'm telling you, kids are very smart. These youngsters, they know what they want in life. And they are fearless. I'm telling you, probably at our age, we were like, kya karenge types, degree to lena zaruri hai, nahi to kuch nahi kar payenge. But I think 5 years from now, nobody will even look at, what degree you have, right? It'll be more so skill based, So I think it's personal choice what parents can accept. But if you have decided you want to build a startup, go for it. Degree ले लो, अगर मिल सकती है. नहीं मिल सकती है तो ठीक है, छोड़
How about
दो.
Abhishek? What's your experience? What's your take on this subject?
If you're admitted to a US university, take a gap year. If India should complete the degree,
Then go to BITS basically. you're
no,
saying.
but most people complete a degree in India. But some people are too insane, they're too ziddi,
Right.
and there you cannot tell anything.
How do parents think about it? How do parents feel about it?
I think if the kid is going to the US, they feel more comfortable in the idea of dropping out. If the kid is going studying in India, they're less comfortable.
How does the parent think about economics? Because see, US education at a graduate level costs you
Yes.
approximately $400,000, 3 to 4 crore rupees in rupee, right?
Yes.
And it's a big decision, right? So a parent takes a decision, especially
Yes.
they put all the money in sending child abroad.
Yes.
So how do they then think about the risk,
Actually,
cost benefit analysis? I'm just asking a very direct
Yes.
question because
No, a great
you know-
question actually. So I'll tell you one more thing, Parents who can afford that 3 to 4 crore wala education outside, right? Which means you're coming from a cushioned background.
That is Bangalore. So if you look at husband and wife working in Bangalore, each earning 1 to 2 crore salary.
Yes.
So or metros basically. You will see a lot of trends coming.
Which means the risk appetite increases, right? So agar, and if you ask your parents, I want to drop out, try things, parents will still be okay. And then they'll say, "ठीक है, India में रहो, build करो." Not everybody can go to the US and study, right? That education is expensive, right? Now, if you're talking about parents here, so one thing, which is very critical, if your family is taking a loan to put you in a college, right? That is the case wherein, you should not be starting up, right? Because see, when you're starting up, you need mental peace, right? And loan is negative compounding, right? So might as well be very sincere in your education, get a great job, take care of the loan, and then potentially start, right?
Have you seen any startup which you funded where a student was on loan?
No. So actually, we do not encourage entrepreneurs who have loans.
I understand.
Because it's not right, because it's too much pressure and we know that they will break someday, right? So we either tell them that sometimes not everybody comes. India is still not that affluent, right? Like there are different tiers, right? So if the education is so precious for your parents wherein they've taken a loan, please, you can do it much later in your life when you've, become something by yourself. अगर आपके सिर पे लोन है तो स्टार्टअप ना कीजिए. That is what we always recommend. It's very difficult to manage.
Yeah. Right? What's your view, Abhishek?
On the loan thing?
Yeah, these are the challenges. I'm talking about challenges that one faces, right? Loan is one of them she's pointing out.
Yes.
That if you loan on your head, then it becomes a challenging situation to be in.
We funded a company between 12th standard and going to college. There you don't have to pay, you just take a defer.
Yeah.
You just sort of defer your admission, you're not paying, you just have an admission letter and you can join 1 year later. I guess that's you're not putting money on the table. Maybe you paid some admission fees and you start up then. I guess that's the easiest decisions of all. You try for 1 year. If it works out, you do it. If it doesn't, you go back to college. You just, probably just 1 year older in college. That's probably fine. If you're a college in India, then anyway, dropping out is a hard thing. Admin is not going to agree. There's so many issues there. It may change. BITS has this. I think IIT Madras also has that. But generally, it's hard to drop out in India. There we say just complete the degree.
Understand.
And find hacks. Find ways to not attend.
Also, I want to switch the topic also. I see a lot of students going for business degree. What is your view on? It's a controversial topic again, right? A lot of students I go with, especially going to the US, they all go for business degrees, BBAs and all this undergrad level. And being an entrepreneur, and I started without any business understanding or family business background, I have not been able to find the use of a business degree. Do you have any take on that education ecosystem? What kind of, do you get it? That's another question that parents typically discuss, right? Do you go for a specific craft in your education, even if you're doing startup later in between, or you go for a general degree? Like you said, 50% is approximately coming from engineering background, which is the craft that you're learning.
Right.
So any take on that?
So again, may not be a popular thing. I think it is time now that youngsters can decide what they want to study, right? Be it psychology, be it engineering. So I'll give you both perspectives, right?
So, but most of the time, sorry to interrupt you, most of the times parents do not know. Parents also do not know. See, the biggest, and I'm talking as a parent, and also I am very passionate about education as well.
Yes.
And I spend a lot of time with the children of that age group as well.
Yes.
See, the lack of information, that's the reason I'm asking this question on the podcast.
Correct.
So how do you...
I think technical degree is quite very advantageous to start a company. And, in this AI world, I feel like what has changed is AI. And if you look at people who are building large AI companies in the US, they're like gold medalist and studying at MIT and blah, blah. So I think technical degrees, of course, you can do without it, but I feel there's a lot of value in getting through a technical education and going through a rigorous curriculum.
There's a flip side to it as well. So I'll tell you, I'm an engineer. So engineering makes you analytical, right? At least logically, you know how to problem solve and things like that. But, there are entrepreneurs and there are, friends who come from history, art background. They tell you that, those degrees help you think beyond, right? Which means you become imaginative, you become creative, and you can build companies which nobody could think of, right? So that's the argument that you get from people who are not from technical background. And there is no proof of the fact that sirf technical entrepreneurs hi badi companies bana sakte hain.
That I fully agree
Right.
with. My daughter is a design student.
Exactly.
And I can see the difference in how she thinks and how engineering thinks.
Yes.
So I think that's still a craft, right? Whether you
Yes.
learn a design or you learn
Yes.
engineering or you learn accounting
Yes.
for that matter, is a craft. But there are also a lot of general purpose degrees that people go after.
Yes, yes. But to be very honest, whatever you study, I'm not sure if that education really comes to use when you're building a startup, right? Like, I've never built an engineering sort of a company, right? It just makes you analytical, right?
So what helps student the most to start a company? If not, obviously, education is going to be more conventional, right? They have to follow to some curriculum. And
Externships. Expose yourself to as many externships.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Externships.
Okay, externship.
Yes.
What do you mean by externship?
So expose your externship, expose yourself to different things, intern with a lot of young startups, try and get into a finance firm, try and work with law media, whatever you can explore as a student, right? You actually learn by experiencing, right? So as many things as you can put yourself to, right? Do that. And that gives you a knack to build.
I understand.
I actually believe in the opposite. I feel like young people are too afraid to commit to the project. And before a project starts taking shape, it takes lots of commitment, to get to the edge of a field, it takes like a couple of years and constantly obsessing about it. And in those moments, if they start thinking that, hey, maybe I can explore and ditch this project. So there's a flip side to that. And I am on the camp of committing. If you feel like you found your spark of interest, no matter how good it is, how bad it is, how limiting it is, at least go to the depth of it. And so I am a fan of like committing to a field and obsessing about it. And that obsession will just make you smarter, get you to a place which will show you things about that project that no one else can see in the world. And that takes time. So if there is most of the companies that we funded in our portfolio, almost everyone has a project that they obsessed over in their undergrad, like for not just weeks but months and years. So that's also one of the signals we pick a lot on, like very in our interviews and when we're looking at people, have they really obsessed about anything?
How sustained is the interest, basically, and how deep they can go?
Maybe they're obsessed about playing football and they became one of the best footballers. But we really are looking for signs of extraordinary obsession and commitment.
Understand. I think I also agree with the point that Charles made. I think amount of risk capital also makes it. Amount of risk taking always going to make a difference in the success that come out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we both of you are taking that undue amount of risk. So how has been the success rate so far? In general, what are give me a few successful examples from your portfolio?
Sure. So I think the Gantra, as I spoke about, Google Maps of Space, we've got Sarla. Like I'm talking about the funds who are in the news, right? Like Sarla is doing flying taxis. Then we've got Ethereal X, they are building reusable rockets. Then I've got Green Grahi, which is doing insect-based protein. So we've invested in 37 companies till now. And different sectors. We are sector agnostic.
Of course, yeah.
It cannot be specific. So yeah, we've got a lot of deep tech companies. These are some of the ones which have come in news. Oh, we've got some D2C companies. We've got a pet healthcare company now, which is making rounds in Bangalore. It's called as Dr. Doodly. We've got a Vada Pav company. They are making the QSR chain for Vada Pav. So it's Mumbai Pavco. Again, they've got some buzz here in Bangalore. So different variety from deep tech to D2C to AI SaaS, expand my business. Again, they are going global. They are sort of trying to disrupt the Infosys and TCS of the world. They were our first investment, doing really well. So yeah, we've got, our companies are still very young. Our oldest companies are now doing their Series B.
I understand. Of course,
Yes.
it's 4 years and students started, so it's fair.
Yes.
How about you, Abhishek?
Airbound is a company. We funded Naman.
Airbound.
We funded Naman when he was 16. He applied to us when he was 16. And we gave
What does it do?
He's making vertical takeoff delivery drones.
Okay.
For delivery. And his goal is to get delivery cost to 2 rupees, 3 rupees per kilometer. The whole quick commerce delivery gets to 10 rupees per kilometer. So his goal is to make the world's best aircraft that's light, that takes off vertically, energy efficient. And the big hypothesis here is that drone delivery has been expensive because drones are bad. They're heavy. They're not well made. And if you think of that as an engineering company, like if you think of investing your resources as you invest resources in building an airplane, you'll get to a drone that's going to work in the world. And they raised a Series A from like Lightspeed and Lockheed Group. So that's one example. And I wrote his recommendation to colleges because his deal with, so when we were giving him the check, my deal with their parents was, I will need to write a recommendation. So that, and I said, okay, we'll take that risk. He can apply. He was a top scorer in ACT and all of that, and he got into Carnegie Mellon, and then he dropped out, but he didn't go. So in that 2 year, we took that risk, and that was the arrangement between us. There's another company called Stimulor. They're an AI language learning.
I know, I've seen Stimulor.
Yeah.
They have 4 million users. The Speak.com, which is a $1 billion company in the US, they have 10 million users in language learning. So that's AI. So 50% is hardware, 50% AI. They're also funded by Lightspeed. Recently, we did Armatrix that I talked about. There's a company called Pluto Mobility that is building delivery. They started out of Thapar. The project was making drones that clean solar panels. That's when we met them, and they were obsessing over that since second year of their college. But initially, when we wrote the check out 6 months later, they said this is not going to work. So they started. They just experimented being a delivery boy at Zomato, Swiggy. I don't know what triggered that thought in them, but they started doing that, and then they realized the delivery vehicle that exists today is not meant for deliveries. It was invented decades ago for people to commute from one place to another. But right now is used as a delivery vehicle. So they started making a new delivery vehicle, and they recently closed a seed round. Yeah.
How many students pivot from the original idea they come to you with?
Roughly 40% for us.
40%.
You know what? This is more so in software companies than in hardware, right? Because in hardware, obviously, you know that this is the end goal. And we are seeing a lot of AI companies doing that. So approximately 25 to 30% companies, which is like our AI exposure. Because that ecosystem is also evolving so rapidly, right? So the founders have to be smart enough to continue to, move accordingly. So that's what we see primarily. Hardware mein
So are the students able to sustain their interest to the pivot?
Yeah. So, again, these students are really passionate and dedicated. उनको पता है कि उन्हें startup ही करना है. Job is not an option for them, right? And, these kids don't think small. Lot of these AI companies and everything, सबको global companies बनानी, which is great ambition, right? Nobody just doesn't think about that I have to be an India only company. Sabka, the foundation that they are putting is not how do I become a $0 million company? How do I become a $0 billion company, a global company from the get-go? And that is beautiful about them. And, they have that capacity. I'll be very honest. Some of our, one of our companies, they were struggling in finding their product market fit or whatever. And they had gotten, cash trapped, so to say. So the founder was an MBA grad, is an MBA grad actually. So he had some savings and things like that. He maxed out his credit cards. He maxed out everything. He has so much conviction, yaar, main to bana lunga, right? Like if today he didn't get the next round of money, he would be completely finished from a financial point of view. But these guys have insane level of conviction कि यार कुछ भी हो जाए हमें तो build करना है, right? Which I think is insane about these young innovators, right? Which is what makes us fall in love with them day in and day out.
And do you think they're getting financially more savvy when they come to you? Of course, they're college students, right? So how do they think about money? How do they think about the spend?
Great question. I think, again, I love this about investing in student entrepreneurs. They are so sincere about capital. No young student entrepreneur comes and asks, "Mujhe itni salary chahiye," yeah, things like that. They're like, we all will stay together, manage everything. We want to hire, we want to build, and things like that, right? I mean, that shows their intent, right? And they are very judicious, and they are frugal. They are hustlers. They are jugadu, right? So what some senior would be able to build in 10 rupees, they'll get it done in a rupee, right? And sabke paas interns hote hain. So they are very cash efficient, which we love. That's what we've seen with them.
How about you, Abhishek?
Yeah, they don't. I agree with her. Like, they don't need a lot of money. They get a flat. They're eating Maggie. They're survive on 30,000 a month, like just a flat. But they also don't know bank stuff, compliance stuff. Like, if you're getting reimbursement, what should be reimbursed? Does this is this a personal thing? Is this a company thing? They don't have some type of HR software set up. They're sort of just withdrawing. Sometimes just doing it manually. So I think there's this compliance and how to use the bank and what should be the general agreement between founders in terms of reimbursements. I think that's something we have to tell them as a standard. Hey, this is the standard. But in terms of principle, I think they can live very broke.
And that's really so good. So good to hear. I'm really so excited to hear this. And how do you think the capital construction has become expensive? Deals have become expensive. Are they much smarter? For example, I'll give you an anecdote. My son is in 10th grade and is in Bangalore. Since 7th, all the boys come home for football and this thing. And I've seen them. They're saying, if I start a company, I will not give them more than 7% equity. That is too expensive already. And so I'm seeing they are much more, though I don't know how many of them will do a startup, but they're so tuned to how much they should dilute at this stage. This is school children I'm talking about. It's not even college. So do you see that trend? They're more equity savvy now, or
they are becoming good negotiators, is what I'll say. As I said, no, we are getting better quality entrepreneurs. So it's becoming more like knowledge is available now, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, they also understand, right? In the end, it's just not about at the stage at which we get in, right? It's just not about money. It's about everything else that we bring around it, right? To help them go from zero to one journey. So they obviously understand and appreciate that, but they are more aware. Like term sheet mein kya terms hote hain and all of that stuff, right? So Pehle, what we used to do is we used to call them, take them through all the points, explain them as to why there is a point like this, what it means and stuff like that. Nowadays, we don't need to do that much because they are more prepared.
I'm so amazed to hear this.
Yes.
And so how much they end up diluting on an average?
So it depends again, 10 to 20% is what they dilute.
Which is fairly good price for somebody at a student level or just out of college.
Yes.
How do you see yourself? I'm just switching the gears now. So how do you see yourself against YC? I saw the comment before podcast that you prepare them for YC. Do you see that at some point in time we'll start competing with YC, or how do you think the whole thing will shape up in the next coming years?
No, we don't prepare them for YC. We are not competing with YC. We don't. I think you run a cohort. We don't run cohorts. We invest consistently on a month-on-month basis. We don't have standard checks for standard terms. We are very custom because every entrepreneur, every business is very different. So we don't.
But I was trying to get some other point. Do you see? So obviously, YC is a global mecca now. Everybody goes there and is stamped, and then suddenly everything changes. Do you think India will get something like that at some point in time?
But I think times have changed, right? Those were like the early days of venture, and there was fancy around, getting to YC, and then obviously, the companies had to flip to the US and things like that. The selection rate of the Indian companies in YC have been reducing significantly and things like that, right? So I think with the geopolitical situation changing, more people coming back to building and stuff like that, I think you don't need another YC in India, right? We need more homegrown funds, more risk capital coming in India. That's true. But what form and shape, not necessarily YC. Every category will have its own playbook, right? That's what I think it'll evolve. I don't think we need yet another YC at this point in time.
What do you think, Abhishek?
I think YC, we started as a YC coaching because that's the only thing we had to do. We didn't have, but now we're not that. We compete with YC, and I feel like YC is the OG student fund in the world.
Yeah.
When they started in 2007, their pitch was 324, 24, 25, something like that. Their pitch was, we'll give you $20,000, drop out from your summer internship, and targeting few colleges, and try this. If it works out, start a company. And many of them, like Dropbox, Sam Altman, came through that project. And even if you go to Stanford University now today, or Harvard or MIT, the third year, fourth year students wants to get into YC, and YC sort of has a nice rhythm with them. So I feel like YC is sort of the OG student fund in the US, which sort of evolved into a global pre-seed fund that now funds every kind of entrepreneur. I feel like YC's after AI, after Sam Altman launched AI and OpenAI launched AI, which is like 4 years ago, most American funds, and including YC, are focusing on in the Bay Area. They know the next $1 trillion company is going to come from the Bay Area. And even if an Indian founder is going to build it, they'll find a way to come to the US. Someone else will fund them in whatever. Maybe they'll come for masters. So that's my pulse. Like YC is no more so bullish on India. If you look at their yearly deals to India, it's in low single digit. In COVID, it was 30-40. So I think there was a phase where they got excited about India. Maybe in COVID because there was much more capital and they had to allocate somewhere, and India was one of the places. At this moment, we don't see people getting it's low single digit.
Yeah,
And I
all
think
those companies are paying a tax now to come back to India.
yeah. So, and I think it's the AI effect.
Yeah, understand. So how do you see the market changing in the next 5 years? Just the same thing, just doing more and more. Do you see the market shaping up in the next 5 years? Will anything change?
With regards to student entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
I think, okay, so, I just to draw analogy, probably the time when I was going to college or when you were going to college,
That is way back.
so universities were used to put ads, right? X number of people placed with so much package and things like that, right?
Even now also, I saw on LinkedIn,
No,
1
no.
crore, 2 crores, 3
But
crores,
now,
whatever.
I'm telling you how it's going to change in the future. So many entrepreneurs from our college, these many entrepreneurs came out and they've reached. So, वो पूरा narrative
So they
change
talk
हो
about the
गया.
market cap from my college. as well.
Exactly, market cap from my college. That narrative is going to change. So I think more and more youngsters are going to take to entrepreneurship. And when I say entrepreneurship, it does not mean that everyone will have to be venture backable kind of businesses, right?
That's never going to be the case even in mainstream also.
Yes.
Only 10% get funded,
Yes.
90% is
What I
bootstrapped,
mean
yeah.
is they'll be going on their own, right? It can be a lifestyle business, it can be a business which grows, but more and more people are going to go on their own is how this ecosystem is going to change. And degrees, I think colleges colleges will be actually places for networking more so than anything else, right? So that's how it's going to evolve according to me.
Understand. What do you think, Abhishek?
I can tell you how we're going to evolve and what we're going to do more. What we're going to do more is focus more on projects. We will keep investing more in tinkering. Maybe we'll start our own research lab. Maybe we'll do more grants and get people to start tinkering spaces where they tinker in the form of project. Because we truly believe that tinkering as a project can lead to large outcomes, like something like OpenAI. Even an outcome of that size cannot be deliberate and intentional by saying, hey, we're going to launch a product that's going to be $100 million company. But sometimes it's really group of smart young people that have some experiment money, and no one identified that group of people, and someone external told them, hey, why don't you play with this money? You don't have to start a company, it's fine. So we tell people when we give grants, there's no in the grant agreement, there is no right to invest. There is no that you have to start a company. There's nothing like that. Just play with it. So I think the way we're going to evolve is going to be more committed to the idea of tinkering. And personal goal is to, hey, can we get a large scientific large company that comes out of extreme amount of experimentation? Because only then you hit a more than $10 billion plus, $50 billion plus market. Then you start thinking of that or start hitting of that, and we get a piece of ownership in that company.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think
So
you have ultimately, crack the fundamental research or fundamental problem.
Yeah.
The form factor, I feel like, my current hypothesis that the form factor for that would be starting a research lab that competes with MIT and Stanford in research. And first by starting to publish papers, and then there would be a group of people who would end up discovering something, and a week later they realize, hey, maybe this can be a product. So I believe maybe that's going to be a pattern, one more pattern. We saw that in our portfolio when we were writing grants. We saw that constantly, where people were just playing around with something and they said, hey, connecting the dots, this makes sense. So I think our belief is going to be, you don't have to want to be an entrepreneur from day zero. What you must be is an obsessive person. That's a non-negotiable for us. Not the fact that, hey, you're going to come into the room and say, hey, I want to create a large company, but rather you're so obsessed about it, you're thinking about it in the shower. Show us that. So we want to fund that spirit.
I understand. And from where, so what do you see right now? We spoke about early on that, you have so many people who are from top tier colleges and also not so top tier college, and entrepreneur can come from anywhere. How is that trending in the cities? Do you see the tier 3, tier 4 towns? Of course, top 16 cities where you have Zomato, Swiggy, and all these people obviously get. But how do you think about how is that, what level it has reached to?
Right. So again,
what is the participation of rural India in this is what I'm trying to understand. Vernacular language schools, colleges.
Yes. It's actually increasing by the day. And like at Campus Fund, zaruri nahi hai that you have to speak to us in English, right? Because we have our student teams who can speak in multiple languages. See, to build a business, you need not know English.
Yeah.
Business samajh mein aana chahiye, right? You should understand the fundamentals. So I think those guys may not be that polished that the typical VC ecosystem is used to, but they understand dhanda, right? And that is what you need, right? And they have that fire in the belly, right? So, as Campus Fund, we've tied up with a lot of incubators, accelerators across who help these guys, right? Before we actually could make an investment and things like that. It's increasing by the day. I'd say from tier 3, tier 4 cities, we are seeing about 20% of our deal flow coming from there. And I don't think we'll mind investing, because as I said, you can be sitting anywhere. If you really want to learn, you can learn and build, right?
Yeah, my question was: is the knowledge getting
Going, yeah,
disseminated?
200%.
Okay.
Knowledge is going. I mean, our latest investment, I know, it's not a tier 2, tier 3 city per se, but our latest investment is from IIT Jammu. I was also surprised to see, Arey, IIT Jammu, wow, very good, because you'd never think about it because of the region, and the kind of conflicts that
Yeah.
are there. So,
Understand.
location is no longer a restriction of what
It's
you
not a
want to
barrier
be.
anymore.
It's not a barrier anymore. Yeah.
I think we need more pricing mechanisms more than education. By pricing mechanisms, I mean, like, for example, when someone writes the JEE exam and someone is from a village, and out of 50 people, one person clears the exam. Just before that day of writing the exam, that person will say, "Hey, I didn't know I could do this. Hence, there must be some ability in me that I could pull this off."
Yeah.
If you look at, like, one of the curious things that I'm curious about is how come so many great coders in the world come from Russia and Eastern Europe. And then I saw this quote by Telegram's founder where he said that it was the entrance exam at Russia that made him believe that he could do something. And I feel like we don't just need JEE, but I think we need many pricing, national level pricing mechanisms,
Discovery mechanism
in each field, so that whatever the kid is good at, they have a way to get prized and discovered, which makes it easier which makes their life easier. By funds like us can pick on those signals, and it makes, like, as I said, we have 40,000 applications, we make it 1 lakh or 2 lakh. So it's not about we don't want to be democratic. It is that the volume becomes so large.
Right.
We need more pricing mechanisms, and and I feel like the other big job of pricing mechanism, it increases belief in people. Like, they didn't know that they're good. And
basically, it needs localized grad and campus funds who can then feed into you like an accelerator at that level.
But it could be like maybe a coding exam national level, or it could be a national level dance competition. It could be like, so many of people we funded are like football players, squash level players. Like, the founder of Flute is a squash player.
Some spark somewhere in some field.
Something that makes them believe that they have the right to be ambitious. Because the average kid would be a Sehmawa kid who's being told by everyone things are not possible. So unless, like, some dramatic event happens in their life that, hey, maybe you are a special kid, and that can be done by, like, many like national.
I think the teachers and the peer groups, I think, makes a lot of difference in my experience. I tell my story. I'm from a very small town, Moga in Punjab.
Yeah.
So when I was in +2, I didn't know about IIT. That's why I asked about information dissemination. And our professor told us, don't even forget about writing exam. Don't go. From our town, nobody's ever gone to any engineering college. So please don't go. Don't waste your time. Do something local here, and that's about it, right? So we didn't study the entire +2. We just wrote exam and got through for whatever reason. But that's what I see happening in the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 towns, where people don't even know what the point is making out, right? They don't even know the potential. So there has to be a way to test that.
But I think, again, I would still say that knowledge is getting there. Like, you go to a small town also.
So how do you work on dissemination of knowledge, apart from obviously going to college and physically?
No, so actually we have this beautiful network of scouts who act as our khabris. Aapne wo dekha hoga in cricket, right? You have scouts everywhere who are scouting for talent, right? That is what we have to do, right? Our scouts have, scout everywhere, and that is why I'm able to go to a lovely professional university or an IIT Jammu and things like that, or some college in Jhansi, right? Or some college in Bhopal or Surat. And that is when you interact, you show them what's possible, you put them through certain accelerators, incubators, they get exposure. Exposure does beautiful things. That's why I'm saying, when you're studying and you have this hunger that life mein kuch karna hai, get as much exposure as you can before you say that, this is what I want to build. Because that exposure, that knowledge is very valuable, right? It teaches you, see, whatever we've learned in life, we know how to connect the dots, right? And that is nothing but equivalent to our exposure, right? So at an early stage in life, get as much exposure as you can, so that you can apply that information when you're building something, for the long term, right? So I think we have this whole scouting network. We work with a lot of universities, and we are not restricting ourselves to any particular region. Wherever you are, we'll find you. You don't need to even come to us, right?
Do you incentivize the scouts?
Yeah, we do. So we have this belief that everybody should have a skin in the game, right? So all our scouts get carry in the fund.
Oh, very nice.
So I think that's the biggest incentive. I don't give them any stipend. Stipend
Of
doesn't
course.
make any sense, right? Everybody gets a good share in the carry, profit share, because that's also giving them that, let me find, let
Yeah.
me go, let me encourage, let me talk. So yeah, that's what we
How
do.
about you, Abhishek?
We are focused. The best way to reach out to is write application. Just fill the we reply to every email. We reject
Every email?
every like application
Yeah.
has to be responded to. Maybe there's some technical glitches that can happen, but the best way to reach out is just applying on our website.
And do you also help finding co-founders? How big is that is a, I would say, a challenge or a problem?
Actually, no, we don't help in finding co-founders. I don't think that we as a fund can do that, because
So how do people form teams?
so you're studying in the same college, you're from a city, you're chuddy buddies, and you're in this school, that school, bhai kuch karte hain, types like that. That bond and that relationship can't be artificial match, like the arranged marriage versus love marriage. It has to be love marriage. It cannot be arranged marriage, because you have to build it for a
But the
decade,
success
right?
of arranged marriage is more than love marriage, you know that,
I
right?
know, but
I don't know about that. Yeah.
I know, but in entrepreneurship, till the time you guys, like if somebody force fits you, it stays for, say, we are seeing a lot of breakups also that happen
Yeah.
with friends. But if they've found it, they've been knowing that person from school, from same city, I think those bonds last longer. So we don't help in founder matching. I don't think we are
Understand.
capable of doing that, and don't want to do that. Yeah.
How about you, Abhishek? What
We
do you-
also
no
we
founder
look at
matching.
teams. Yeah.
Yeah,
So do you
yeah.
do you fund a single founder?
Yes. And I'm telling you, I think with the advent of AI, there'll be many more single founders coming in, right? Because there's nothing wrong in being a single founder, right? Because then there's clarity of thought, vision, cut, execution, right? You don't have to manage your other co-founder and things like that. It's always good to have another co-founder. Might as well hire a core team person, right? That so we are not against investing single founders. We've invested in single founders as well. And with AI, I think that is also going to increase by the day, is what I think.
Possible.
Yeah.
Abhishek, you invest single founder?
We do single founders. Like there's no
Yeah.
premium for anything.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
So in the last segments, what is your top 3 advice to the students and the parents?
Oh, to the parents, I think
They're equal stakeholder, right? At that
yes,
stage that you
yes.
are
Very
investing, especially
important,
coming from an Indian society background, right?
very important stakeholder. I'd agree. I think what they should, if they are financially stable and there's no financial responsibility on the parent or on the child, that in that case, I think they should be like, we have your back, you go and build, right? We'll support you along the way. If you falter, we'll still have your back, right? I think what these youngsters need is a strong backing, not from a financial point of view, but from an emotional point of view, right? If I have my home, if I have my parents backing me, right, that's another level of sukoon, right? I think I was able to build because I always had the support of my parents, right? It plays a very strong psychological role. Whether you're completing your degree, whether you're not completing your degree, that can be a discussion between the child and the parents. But then unconditional support should be given by parents. That's only my humble request, right? And for the kids, right? I think do a startup when you're genuinely passionate about it and you are ready to go through the roller coaster, right? Because it's a long ride. Don't do a startup because it's fashionable, because it's becoming fashionable. Everybody wants to now be a founder, right? And like don't get carried away. Not everybody needs to be a founder, right? You can do a job. That's also a great thing. There are so many successful professionals, right? So, I don't want students to take the path of entrepreneurship because it's a fad, right? The purpose of starting should be very strong. And, purpose as a word looks very heavy for a student. But I'm telling you, these kids know it, right? Whether they want to do it or not. So have the right reason to start up. I think that'll be my only advice. I think otherwise, all support and glory to them.
If you're a non-technical person who wants to start a company, I would suggest find a technically strong co-founder, because in the AI world, if you want to start an AI company, it's going to matter a lot. So that's for if someone is in DU or Christ or maybe studying history, just somehow meet technical people and get them on your side. Like that should be your first thing. If someone is a PhD aspirant from India studying undergrad, I would say give starting a whatever your PhD thesis, whatever you plan to do, maybe think of can you start a company out of that. And typically PhD people are in different eat at different spaces in mess. They're not part of e-cells and they're not like part of the entrepreneurship culture. So I would say maybe think of you want to start up instead of applying or going to the US. If somebody is in the US student, I would say maybe think of India as, maybe you get to be the big fish in a smaller pond versus smaller fish in the big pond. And if that's appealing, maybe consider coming back to India. That would be.
And for parents?
For parents, see, your kid is going to do what they're going to do. I mean, I can tell you, but they're going to do what they're going to do. And if someone is going to start a $1 billion, $100 billion company, they'll not be asking for permission. And that's the reality.
They don't ask for permission for anything anymore.
Yeah, they're not going to ask for permission. So honestly, you can't do much because you gotta.
But parents, parents worry a lot. I can tell you for that.
Prepare for it. Yeah, just make sure there's backup and just make sure there's backup. There's deferred admission, blah blah. But there's not much you can do.
No, thank you very much. I think the main summary is purpose is what you should look for and then go for it, right?
Yes.
And you have capital here. You can come to both of them at any point in time and ask for capital. But I am really, really very excited to see this. I would call a movement which has started in India in a big way. And thanks to both of you and many others who actually do angel investing also at that stage.
Yes.
So I'm glad that both of you can take out time and discuss this subject. I'm sure both parents and students are going to love it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.